Hey, this is Scott Spears, and I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Scott Spears Now, and boy, do we have a treat for you today. My guest is a longtime friend. He is a legend here in Marion for more than 9 decades. 9 decades and 1 year, soon to be 2 years, this coming August. He's a restaurateur, really a raconteur with all the things he's done. He's run for public office. He's married to a public official here in town, a longtime public official, ran restaurants with his mother, clubs is really what you'd call those, the Cafe George, all those Kagan Vine, Home Cafe, just a real history lesson here. One of my favorite people, George Kasotis. George, so good to see you here. We're still doing shows in 2024.
Oh, you should have added one more. Brandy called me from the Historical Society and wants to know all about the Ace High Club.
Oh, yes, the Ace High Club.
You remember that name?
When you were on with Linda last time, we talked a little bit about the Ace High
well,
Club.
Linda wanted to know more about what happened back then in the 40s and the 50s. That place was hopping back in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s. I think I sold it to, what was his name? Willie. Anyway, something happened, and but at first, when I went to buy it in 1954, it was leaning over in Senate Street, and the guy was originally from Indianapolis and wanted to sell it, and he came to my restaurant and said, "George, I'd like you to buy my restaurant. My wife wants to go back to Indianapolis, where we're originally from," and I said, "Well, let me look at it." So I went down there and looked at it, and he took me inside, and it was really nice inside. One of the most beautiful back bars I've ever seen, with mermaids on it, and out of mahogany wood. And so when I left, I looked up in the corner of the building. It looked like it was leaning over a little bit. So I went up to City Hall, which was where we are right now.
Where we are?
City Hall, and looked in the records and found out that it was going to be condemned. So I went back and told him, I said, the building is not in good shape. The City Hall has it for condemning. And he said, he gave me a price. And I said, well, your price is a little much. I said, how about this? And I gave him a number, and he said, I'll take it, because my wife wants to leave. So I bought that building and reestablished. It was named Shantytown Bar and Grill.
So when you bought it, it was named Shantytown.
Shantytown Bar and Grill.
Now this was on Senate Street.
Corner of Senate and Hocking.
Now what is there now?
Nothing.
It's just an empty lot.
5 lots. There's 5 actually parcels there in that corner. It's pretty huge, that whole corner. Hocking runs this way and Senate runs this way. Hocking and Senate Street, right on the corner. And that, when I finished remodeling it, Jack Keppen was my dear friend and also a construction guy, and he tilted that building back up, remodeled it, put in new bathrooms, just went over the whole place, remodeled it. And we called it, I got a group of guys together, and the number one guy was Johnny Hill, and he was such a good guy, everybody called him Johnny Goodblack. And so Johnny said, George, why don't you name it Ace High Club?
And that's who came up with it.
That's what we came up with it.
Now, at the time that the Ace High Club was in business, you were running which other restaurant?
The Cress Coffee Shop.
Cress Coffee Shop.
Cress. That's before I had a alcohol permit. It was called the Cress Restaurant. My mother was a prohibitionist. She wouldn't allow liquor.
Oh, your mother didn't
No.
She didn't want alcohol.
She didn't want alcohol.
Dorothy
said she was a prohibitionist. She was with those ladies, that went around and tried to break up places that were that served alcohol. And so while we were at the Crest, she would fix the food. I would take it out to the customers, and all of the people downtown would come to the restaurant. And even that guy that was on the corner there across from the Historical Society, what's his name?
Oh, downtown now?
Yeah.
Oh, let's see. What's across from the Historical Society down there now?
The house that's 100 years old. He's the oldest guy in Marion. He was a contributor. Where Dean Jacobs is, they call
Stingletrue?
True Henry.
Henry True.
Henry True used to come in the restaurant.
Did he?
Yeah.
Now, what kind of guy was he? What did he do, first of all?
What did he do?
What was his business?
Everything. I think he dealt with, what's his name, that one guy that's a trillionaire or billionaire. Well, we have one in Ohio, the one in Columbus, Wexner. He's a billionaire.
He is. He's got some money.
And then,
Rockefellers were big.
Yeah, but then there was another guy across the country that's bigger than all of them.
J. Paul Getty?
No, not Getty. But anyway, Henry True was like that, a philanthropist. And he had so many different businesses that I didn't know all of them. And so I just served him, and he always came in, and that was the only restaurant he would go to. He said to Dorothy, fixes my food the way I like it, and that was it. He always had his attendant with him. Paul, I think his name was Paul, and he always took care of Henry. And anyway, I said, Mom, why can't we get a liquor permit and serve beer and wine? And she said, no. I said, because a lot of people are asking for wine. She said, no. I said, she said, George, the church people won't come if we have liquor. I said, the church people? I said, Mom, that's who's asking for the wine. Asking for the wine is the church people.
They want a little taste.
Yeah.
They want a little sip.
So anyway, eventually we got a liquor permit because she retired and I got one. And that's when I changed it to Keg and Vine.
Now, when you changed it to the Keg and Vine, how was your mom, even though she'd retired, with you selling alcohol?
She went along with it eventually. It took time, but she said, okay, George, you got the church people and the show people and the industry, the banking people, you got them all coming.
Got them all coming. Now, I've never asked you this, George. What is your favorite drink to have, alcoholic beverage?
I don't know if this, one of the most favorite drinks that I fixed, you won't believe, and a lot of people love it, it's called a margarita.
Margarita, very popular.
Oh my God, he just died, Jimmy Buffett.
Jimmy Buffett, Margaritaville.
You know Jimmy, he just passed away?
I did very, very recently.
Yeah.
Now, how did you make your margaritas?
Well, it depends on the type of vodka. There's so many different types of vodka out there. There's some that are really, really strong, and some of them, they got to be 90. Most of them are 90 proof. And some of them are smoother, some of them are a little bit stronger. You just got to go through and get your ones. Cuervo is one of the top sellers in the country because it's smoother. There's a lot of them that have a little sting taste to it,
Now, did you make your own margarita mix, or did you?
No, I made them individually.
Made them individually.
Everybody makes the mix now. House of Hunan, not House of Hunan. It's the one that's on the south end. Mark or Mac, whatever his name is, he makes a vat. He has a big vat of it because they sell so many of them.
Now, what did you put in your margarita mix?
Cointreau, tequila, lemon, lime. I had my own mix. I made it, each one individual. So.
And then you throw that in with the whatever vodka.
Right.
Now, if you had to choose, though.
I have one thing that
Oh, go ahead.
I smoothly put over the top of it. Okay, my mind's going. I lost it.
We'll come back. We'll come back to what's put on top of the margarita. But if you personally want a drink, go out to a nice restaurant establishment. What kind of drink do you want?
You know what? I never drank that much. All the years I was in the restaurant and bar business, I never never drank that much. Until I married Joanne, and Joanne likes wine, so we like wine. And I'm a very popular drinks are some of the white wines that I like, you know. The most famous is called Riesling. Have you ever heard of a Riesling?
I haven't heard of Riesling.
What's a German wine?
German. You know, I know a lot of people like red wine, but red wine is very sweet, like a sherry.
Oh, and also strong. Red wines are heavier than white wines. I don't know why. It's, the vine of the red wine is a bit stronger than the wine of the white wine. But one of the nicest wines that is made is from Germany. It's called Riesling, and Riesling is just a smooth white wine. It's just tasty.
Goes down easy.
It goes down easy.
Now, a lot of people say, now I think red wine is the one that comes out a lot that is good for the heart, but I think wine in general, they now say, as long as you don't overindulge, is good in general for your health.
Yeah, yeah. Most doctors will say that a glass of wine with your meal is very good.
Very good. Now, when you, the Ace High Club, I want to come back to that for a minute. What kind of clientele was there? Because at that point you had the Crest restaurant. That was no alcohol, just a restaurant. So what kind of people came in to the Ace High Club?
Back in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, we were crowded with advertising agencies. We had some of the top advertising agencies in the country. And the number one was Howard Swink. LSY, Lord Sullivan and Yoder. We had the folks on Gospel Hill, which were Rotary Towers now. Mm-hmm. There was a big house up there. Have you ever heard of that?
No, I've heard of the bit, but I did not know that's where it was. Where the Rotary
house
Towers
on Gospel Hill
is where Rotary Towers is now.
Yeah, that was the LSY. But then they moved up on North Main Street. But when they tore that house down, but that house was huge, and they called it the house on Gospel Hill. That's called Gospel Hill. You didn't know that, did you?
I've heard that, but I didn't know that was where Gospel Hill was.
Yeah, right. Exactly where Rotary Towers is. That hill was called Gospel Hill, and that's where they got the name, the folks on Gospel Hill advertising agency.
Well, that's interesting.
And they had all these big windows with the cover over them, and all the artists would sit at one of those many 20-some windows and do advertising, make drawing. And the one guy I went to school with and graduated from high school, he worked there, and he was an artist. And Dick Hazen, oh my God, Dick was one of the top artists for the folks on Gospel Hill. They competed with Swink, you know, and then LSY. That's 3. I know there's 2 more. There were 5 agencies in Marion at that time. And they all came to the Keg and Vine. Okay? So then in '54, when I bought Shantytown Bar and Grill and remodeled it and called it the Ace High Club, all the advertising agency guys used to come down to the Ace High Club, the guys. And they loved that bar. And they would drink and have drinks. And the problem was, I would make cheese balls and I would make little hors d'oeuvres, you know, and put it out on the bar, and so they could eat, have a bite to eat with their liquor or their wine or their beer, whatever they were drinking, and the food absorbed the alcohol, and they wouldn't get drunk as fast.
So the Ace High Club had a liquor license.
Oh yeah,
oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So they would come down, the advertising agency people, and then they started to call it a black and tan club.
Oh. Now tell people, that's a popular term in those days.
Oh, yeah.
What did that term mean?
It meant that blacks and whites would sit at the bar and talk and eat and drink and have a good time.
And back in the 50s, now people got to remember, this is before the Equal Rights Act. This is before all that. I mean, that was kind of unheard of in those days.
I told you, what's her name at the Historical Society? I guess she's called me 2 or 3. I just found out last night at the Industrial Club meeting. three or four, two people said, George, Brenda, what's her name?
Randy?
Brandy Wilson.
Brandy Wilson.
Yeah, she's been trying to call me, and I haven't got a hold of. She hasn't got a hold of me yet. She wants to know the history about the A-side Club, which was called back then. All the advertising agencies says George owns the place called the Black and Tan Club. They wouldn't call it A-side. They said the Black and Tan Club because there are people, white people, black people at the bar talking and getting along and having a good time. That's what my idea was for Marion, is to have people have a good time and enjoy a drink with some hors d'oeuvres and get along.
Now, were there performances at the A-side Club? Did people perform?
I heard of a guy in Indianapolis. So I went to Indianapolis, and he was playing in a Rathskeller. And I said, I got to see Dick Soule, Richard Soule, S-O-U-L-E, Dick Soule. And I said, so I went to this what do you call it, the basement? What's those places in basements?
Cellars.
Cellar clubs. And this Dick Soule was playing in a cellar club. So I went down to the cellar club, and I finally, at a break, I met Dick Soule, and I talked to him, and I said, I'm from Marion. I have a brand new club, and I'd like you to come over and visit with me and see if you'd like to come over and play for me. And he said, oh, I'd love to. Really nice looking guy with well, he was older. Dick was probably at that time in his 50s, late 40s, early 50s. And he had a drummer that played with the Duke Ellington Band.
Oh.
Sonny Greer. And people don't know this, but Sonny Greer, I have pictures in magazines of the Duke Ellington Band, and Sonny Greer is the drummer. Sonny Greer got old. I mean, Sonny was in his 50s, mid to late 50s, and he's playing with Dick Soule in Indianapolis, Indiana. And I finally talked Soule to come over to Marion, and he came over and visited the A-side Club, and he said, George, I'd love to come over here and play. So he came over, and he liked Marion so much, him and his band moved to Marion.
Really?
They moved to Marion.
So Dick Soule...
At first, before he found a house to live in, I had 8 rooms. What was it? 4 and 4 is 8 rooms upstairs of the A-side Club. There were small rooms and then a big shower in the back, and it was called rooms to let. You know who would rent those rooms?
Who's that?
Railroaders.
Oh yeah, back in those days.
There was the railroads were right there, Erie, Lackawanna, and they, hey. For $10 a night, they could have a shower, and they could sleep and rest to get up the next morning.
Not bad.
Huh?
Not bad.
But they would sit at the bar and drink up until 9, 10 o'clock, and then go up and sleep and get up at 5, 6 in the morning and go get on the train and go back to Indiana. They would go clear back to Indiana, those railroaders. Scott, you would not believe, from 54 to 64, because 54 is when I got back from Korea. That's when I did all this. I was at the Crest restaurant up until 54 with my mother, but when I come back from Korea, that's when the guy from the Shantytown Bar and Grill came up and wanted to sell his restaurant and bar. But I revamped that place, that Shantytown Bar and Grill. But he had 2 ball teams. He had 2 ball teams. But I've got those pictures, but I got to dig deep, because my wife says, George, get rid of all that stuff you got back from the 40s and the 50s. And she said there's piles of it in boxes. And I got pictures of the ball team that Bill and his brother owned the the Shantytown Bar and Grill. They had softball teams. They had the women's ball team and a men's ball team.
Here in Marion.
Yeah.
So, but I want to get back to the point here that Duke Ellington's drummer at one point lived over the Ace High Club.
Yeah, I gave him a room upstairs.
That's very interesting. And they would perform. Now, what kind of crowds would Dick Sewell and the Duke Ellington's drummer, would they draw?
Full house.
Full house.
Bar and the booths, tables in the back, booths on the side. That place. And guess what? It changed the dress code of Marion, Ohio, that would come there, especially the advertising agency guys. All the guys, everybody was in a suit and tie, and the ladies were in beautiful dresses.
Really? So they decided, because we're going to a show, we should dress up.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Now, why do you think our dress code has hit the skids, George? Because you were always a very well-dressed man. You still are. And tuxedos.
I did the tuxedo with the bow tie, the vest. I didn't have jacket on, but I had a vest, a white shirt, bow tie, black pants. All the time I was in my Cafe George. When I changed it to Cafe George,
Yeah, absolutely.
after Crest Restaurant. But that era, I'm talking about the area from 54. 1954 is when I bought the Shantytown. And that's what Brandy Wilson is trying to call me, and I have missed her and missed her. She wants to know all about this, but you're getting it first.
We're getting it first. Well, I'm glad to hear it, because this is part of Marion history that a lot of people don't even realize was there.
Oh, no, they don't know that happened.
No.
Because they weren't here in 54. They weren't born yet.
No, and this is a time in America that is completely different than the time now.
Completely different, Scott. It's just unbelievable. And you know what? This was City Hall.
This was City Hall. This was also Marion General Hospital.
It was Marion before City Hall.
Now, did you ever have any experiences in this building? Well, we know you have as City Hall. You found out that the Shantytown was condemned here.
Yes.
But what are some experiences you remember of this as a hospital or as City Hall?
The famous police station. Oh my God, it was unbelievable. I just saw one of them just died up at Fair Park Church, and I went up there, and guess what? There was one of the policemen, and I saw him sitting there, and I went over and I said, I know his name, and I said his first name, and he said, "Are you George Kasotis? I thought you had died."
Oh, Lord.
Because I hadn't seen you in years. And I said, "Well, I haven't seen you in years." He was here. He was just on the police force. He was a policeman. He wasn't a captain or a general or anything. You're just a regular policeman. And he's probably the only one left, because we were at the funeral of one of his friends that died at that Fair Park Baptist Church. And he had just died. And I think he's the only one left.
Now, would he be about in his 90s as well?
He's 88, 89.
88, 89.
He's a couple years younger than me. But David. David. His first name is David. He drove the vehicle that the chief got hurt. Back then, the chief. Scott, there were so many crazy things that I could tell you about that times from the Ace High Club on up. There was so many things going on that people today would not believe. Like, as for example, one big thing was prostitution.
Oh.
And legal places where they were selling booze from houses. And they had just so many different crazy things.
You know, it's interesting because, people talk a lot about prostitution, and we don't see that now in Marion. God only knows what's going on. But was it a big thing in those days, the 1950s?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Hey, in Washington, D.C., the house is not a home. Have you heard that book?
I have. Well, and we know that it's the oldest profession.
The house is not a home was written by our Congress and senators that used to use the house.
Well, and a lot of them, obviously, paid for women. But it's...
Hey, people today they haven't lived in that era, so they don't understand that.
No, but they really should, that this went on, and it was a thing, and what can you do?
Just from the East High Club, Hocking and Senate Street, right here was a house, and it was called Gracie's.
Oh.
You ever heard that name?
Well, I've not heard of this. No, Gracie's.
You never heard of Gracie?
No. So this was the woman's name who ran the house?
Oh yeah, she had prostitutes, and she had a restaurant.
Oh, she had a restaurant too?
Oh sure, people would go there and eat food, and she had girls from Chicago, from Detroit, and the advertising agency guys used to use that.
They just go on
It was
over.
open. It was an open house.
And the police knew about it.
Yeah, the police, the mayor, the governor, it was open.
It was just a thing.
This is in the early 50s, late 40s, early 50s. Gracie, oh my God. And there was another one called Tilly's. That was on the other side, but it wasn't as nice. Grace had a beautiful home. You should have seen that. The velour, the velvets, the draperies, the furniture from Europe. She had stuff from Europe.
Now, was Gracie a Marion girl?
Yeah.
Now, is her house still there?
That house is still there.
It's still there. Now, it's where, if people wanted to drive by and see where this house
It's
was?
right on Senate Street. It's a second. Well, actually, the first place is on Hocking. The house behind that was this Gracie's.
And it's a big old house over there.
Oh, yeah.
So this was at one time in the 1950s, a house of ill repute.
Well, if you want to call it ill repute.
What did they call them in those days?
Just Gracie's.
Just Gracie's. but the people knew what went on.
Yeah.
But now, do you think she made a lot of money on the food?
Gracie had a lot of money. She sold a lot of food and a lot of booze.
Among other things.
Among other things.
Well, that's interesting.
And those girls, I went over there, but I never used the girls. I just go over there to see Gracie and, George, how you doing? Grace, you're doing pretty good. She had a lot of people in there eating and
I
drinking.
bet she did. I bet she did.
But you ought to have seen the girls.
Good-looking girls, huh?
From Chicago, from Detroit, from Kansas City. She had them from all over the country.
So she brought them in.
Oh, she brought them in.
To work that...
She had connections.
Apparently. She must have.
Is this interesting?
I think that's very interesting, because were these women dressed well?
Oh, furs.
Furs.
In the wintertime, the beautiful furs, negligees, go with sequences and diamonds in them. Or look like diamonds, but
They just glittered over there.
Yeah, they glittered.
What age range was this?
These girls?
Yeah.
Anywhere from 20s to 30s.
Very interesting. We got to take a break here, but we're coming back with George Kasotis. And guess what? Groundhog Day is right around the corner, so we've got a little surprise for you in this episode that we're going to talk about. We'll be back with George Kasotis, the raconteur himself, right after this. Hey, Scott Spears back here with one of my favorite people, George Kasotis, and we are having a fascinating conversation that's going to continue. But to George's right, you see something in this shot that is very, very unique. You're seeing a 6-foot groundhog, because guess what? Groundhog Day is coming up on February the 2nd. And guess what we do here at WGH Talk? This is what we do. Friday, February the 2nd, our friend here, Warren Groundhog Harding, that's our groundhog there, will be here at the station at 8:45 that morning. Now on Groundhog Day, our broadcast starts at 8:15. It runs 8:15 to 11 a.m. But here's what's going to happen. Clearly that's not a real groundhog. But at 8:45, this groundhog is going to pick up a piece of pizza, groundhog pizza. Under 6 pieces of this pizza, it will say 6 more weeks of winter. Under 6 pieces of this pizza, it will say early spring. Whichever piece of pizza the Groundhog picks at 8:45 a.m. on Groundhog Day, that will be the weather prediction for 2024, and it will be signed by the 40th Treasurer of the United States, Mary Ellen Withrow, live here on this station. Now here's the fun part. Who is Warren Groundhog Harding? You will find out the morning of February the 2nd. We're not going to give it away, but you can guess. Go to the Facebook page, WGH Talk, and tell us who your guess is. Who is under the head of Warren Groundhog Harding? Who could it be? Is it a politician, an actor, an actress, a Marion resident, an Ohio resident? Who could it be? You'll find out Groundhog Day morning, because after the prediction is made, the head will come off, and you will not believe who the groundhog is. George, this is going to be a fun morning.
Oh, I can imagine.
Groundhog Day. What's it like to sit next to a 6-foot groundhog?
I feel kind of small.
Yeah, he's a big groundhog.
He's a big groundhog.
Yeah, you don't want to have to clean him.
He's awful hairy.
He is awful hairy. He might need to trim up before the big Groundhog Day.
Oh my goodness, I have to give him some clippers.
You know, George, we have had Groundhog Days here in Marion now for, boy, I think getting close to 50 years now. Certainly over 40 with Buckeye Chuck. It's a nice tradition we have here.
You mean Charlie Evers?
Yeah, Charlie Evers started Buckeye Chuck in the late 70s, I believe.
Yeah.
So that's going on a while. Now, we've introduced our tradition here, Warren Groundhog Harding, and I don't know who's going to be under that mask on Groundhog Day.
That's interesting. That's going to be fun.
That'll be fun, and Mary Ellen Withrow will be there to sign the prediction in to record. So the only person we know it is not is Mary Ellen, because she'll be there to sign the prediction. It's going to be very, very interesting, to be sure. Now, George, we were having a conversation there before we went to break about things that went on in Marion in the 1950s around the Ace High Club, and you were talking about a place named Gracie's, which was, I'm not sure what they call those places. It was called Gracie's, but essentially it was a place where prostitution went on, but also food.
Oh, she had some good people. I remember some of the chefs or the cooks that she had. But it was clean. And it was inspected, too, by the health department.
Now, prostitution not being legal, it's probably hard for people to understand how the mayor and the police force and the health department could come in there and say, oh, okay, you can operate. How did that happen?
Scott, all I can say is it happened. It happened, and there was nobody got arrested, nobody was in jail or anything like that. It just, things went on as long as it was, running a decent, clean environment. What was the most important thing that the health department said? The cleanliness, that's and still today in the Marion Star they give all the restaurants and then the inspections. Well, that's what they did back then. They had inspections and Gracie's always got a good grade, clean. Everything was clean. So that went on. It didn't stop, and it's just amazing that. Don't forget now, we had 5 advertising agencies, and they were all making big money. That one made the guy come in my restaurant all the time. He was one of the top ad guys, and he sold one of the biggest multi-million-dollar contracts. And all it was from the company called Caterpillar. All he did was take C-A-T. Cat. You see that all over the country.
Oh, yeah.
And even in foreign countries, cat. Took it and shortened the name Caterpillar to cat.
So cat was originally Caterpillar.
Caterpillar.
And in Marion is where that got shortened up by an advertising agency.
Right.
That's interesting, because it still lives on today.
Swink Advertising Agency. I know the guy's name. I'm not going to say it. But He was amazing. He was an amazing advertising guy. He could go from coast to coast or Europe or wherever and sell, companies that had their logos and everything, and he would shorten it like he did Caterpillar. That was a multi-million-dollar contract for Swink.
Yeah.
So they had the money. I catered so many functions at that Swink advertising agency. It was unbelievable. They had an A-frame house on the outskirts of Marion by a lake, and they had parties there all the time, big parties, where they would have people coming in from New York, Los Angeles, and people don't know that.
No. Well, and a name that I was thinking of the other day, and he's been gone over 20 years now, but he was a mayor, he was a county commissioner, he was a city councilman, he was a superintendent of Marion City Schools.
Doc Brown.
Doc Brown. People don't remember him, and boy, he was one of the big movers and shakers here in Marion.
Yeah. We always got along until he come in one day at a table I had set up for catering at the school system, the Board of Education directors, and it was a long round table, and I had it all set up, and everybody came in and sat down, and the only thing I made a mistake was I had the water glasses with stem thing with ice water, and he comes in, and Doc comes in and looks at everybody, and I could tell he was upset, because when Doc was upset, he was upset. He come in and he went, he hit that table,
banged it,
and all those glasses tipped over and went into the food.
Oh, the water.
Yeah.
Oh man, well, what was he so upset about? The straws?
That's between him and the Board of Education. I don't know what he was upset about. I just know he knocked over the thing on my table. So I grabbed him and I boom up against the wall and I said, "Why did you do that? No, I'm supposed to feed your people." Well, go ahead and feed them. I don't care. I don't give a damn.
He didn't care. He was kind of a bombastic guy.
Oh, bombastic. Oh my God. He said, "Don't hit me, Greek. Don't hit me."
Well, yeah, I mean,
he called me Greek.
Well, you had to be angry after he did that for something you'd set up like that.
Oh, I called Mary and Jerry right away up at the restaurant, and they brought the food back in less than 15, 20 minutes. I had the food back on the table and cleaned up. But when he hit that table, he was mad about something. Well, he was bombastic.
He was a very high-tempered man. But people did like him. They elected him mayor.
Yeah, everything. County commissioner.
They elected him city council. I mean, he was busy.
One of the funniest, craziest things, and I'll tell you that it's so funny and crazy. We're at the Y, and this is the one downtown. Right there on Church Street. The YMCA.
The one it's the B Church now.
Yeah.
The B Church, yes.
We're down in the basement, and the shower room was right there. Everybody's coming out of the shower. Merle Lacey was a county commissioner.
Oh, Merle Lacey.
And
he's still around.
He's 99 years old.
Nearly 100 years old.
He comes out of the shower, is over there. Merle had this real curly hair. Can I tell this story?
Go ahead.
Merle is getting the curls on his butt naked.
Oh.
Combing his hair, and Doc Brown comes in with a wet towel.
Oh.
And he goes, whack, up against his cheek on his butt. And that cheek on his butt turned blood red. And Merle goes, ah! And he starts chasing Doc. You can't catch Doc. Doc could run like a deer.
He was quick.
Oh, he was a fun racer. He'd get in all the races, and Merle couldn't catch him. Oh. Merle would have beat him up.
Well, that's what. Well, so this happened at the Y.
Yeah, this happened at the Y.
Oh my gosh! So Doc Brown smacked him on the rear end.
Yeah, I was over there sitting on a bench, butt naked, drying off, and I was talking to Reverend Hollison from the Emmanuel Lutheran Church.
It was the Reverend
Hollison. He was the longest running Emmanuel Lutheran Church preacher in Marion for years, Reverend Hollison. And Reverend Hollison is asking me about Greece, about the different islands and everything, and I'm telling him, and all of a sudden we hear this crack. And that's the wet towel against the cheek.
Oh, my.
Oh, blood red.
And Merle's still around.
Oh, Merle's 99.
And Reverend Hollison.
He's gone.
He's went on.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of big deal people in Marion, talking about reverends and people of that ilk, of course, we got to speak about Catholics. We got to speak about, Father Fury.
Oh, Father Fury. He was one of the most popular priests ever in Marion.
I think he could have been elected something.
Oh, yeah, because of his... everybody loved him.
Popularity.
Oh, yeah.
Madge Cooper, who was on the radio for many years, told me that Father Fury, and Madge was not Catholic, neither was Howard Guthrie, I believe,
no.
But on Christmas Eve, Father Fury would do his rounds, and he would stop by the parties and partake in pianos, because they had a piano over there at the Guthrie House, which is right next to the towers there on Gospel Hill.
Yeah.
And it's still there. And Father Fury would come over for Christmas Eve. Yeah. And Martha Dowse, for many years, told me Father Fury would come over and watch the 11 o'clock news with her and Joe every night.
Yeah.
So he got around for a priest.
Father Fury was in every Follies. The Follies that were played by the Junior Service Guild at the Palace Theater, which made a lot of money, because the Junior Service Guild was very popular. And they did a lot of things for children and for homeless and for everything you could think of, the Junior Service Guild. And they did that Follies show, which everybody got into. Doctors, lawyers, Indian chiefs, whatever, would get into that show. I know, I was in it many times. I played the Godfather one year.
Oh.
Then I came out with the sponges in my cheeks, and I said, when everybody drinks, I drink. When everybody pays, I pay.
Well, it's amazing that a priest was in these.
Oh yeah, he was. Father Fury was in every Follies that we ever had.
Now, we talked about Doc Brown being bombastic. How would you describe Father Fury's personality?
You know what? Most girls would go up and kiss Father Fury on the cheek. Girls would go up and hug him and kiss him on the cheek and just hug him all the time. He was so well liked that, I thought, wow. I mean, 20 girls are going over. I'm standing there saying, hey, why one of you come over and kiss me? Well, one did, Joanne.
There you go. And that ended well.
Yeah.
That ended well.
Oh,
but
40 years now.
40 years. My goodness.
With Joanne.
And you married late, George, did you not?
I was in my mid-50s.
And here you are, 40 years later.
40 years later.
Now, why do you think you didn't find the right girl till your 50s?
There were so many that used to come into the restaurants when it was at the Cafe George, and also at the Ace High Club, and white and black, at the Ace High Club, and mostly white at the... I don't even think Linda was born yet.
Linda, I think, 70 now.
Is she 70?
70, I believe.
Well, that's back. She was in the 50s? She was born in the 50s?
She would have been born 53.
Yeah, but she was just a baby during that era. The 50s and the early 60s. She was just a young girl, so she wasn't involved in that. But every time I see Linda, she always asks me a question. George, what happened to Johnny Goodblack? Or what happened to Johnny Hill? We called him Johnny Goodblack because he was the best. He had his mother's gold tooth. And he always had, I used to buy him boxes of cigars because he was always around 6'5".
Oh, big guy.
He could pick people up, the bad guy. If a bad guy come in, Johnny Goodblack would nail him right now.
Now, was he, what was his business?
Johnny Goodblack?
Yeah.
All I know, he was retired. He wasn't working because he was always in my place. He was my bodyguard.
Well, that's good. That sounds like a good bodyguard to have.
Oh, yeah, Johnny Goodblack. His name was John Hill, but it was Johnny Goodblack. Everybody knew him by that. Even today, the black people that are alive still remember Johnny Goodblack.
Johnny Goodblack. And it sounds like these people were such great characters.
Oh, yeah.
You know what's interesting? I was thinking the other day, we don't have great characters now. Like all these people, Father Fury, Madge Cooper. Martha Dowse, Doc Brown, Johnny Goodblack. These people were all characters. I mean, they had tremendous personalities.
Oh, yes.
For good or bad, they were tremendous personalities. And you were right in there with them.
I was in there with them. And we all loved each other. And Marty Dowse and I grew up together. And Joe and Marty. And there were so many couples that I grew up with. Marilyn Metzke.
Marilyn Metzke, Miss America.
Yeah.
Miss Ohio twice.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Now, you also knew Carrie Phillips.
Yeah.
Warren Harding's mistress.
Yep. She came in my restaurant in a dress that was the manager of Euler Phillips. I'm trying to think of his name. He was the manager of Euler Phillips department store. And he came in, and he used to come in all the time by himself. But one day he walks in and she was there. And I swear, everybody in the place went,
oh.
Watched her walk in the way she walked.
Because she was a good-looking woman.
Oh, she was a beautiful lady.
Now, did people know that she had had a relationship with the president?
Not that many. Just a few knew, but it wasn't published or everything, so.
Then she died and all those letters came out.
Right.
That was kind of unfortunate for her. I don't think she wanted people to read those letters.
Stories.
Yeah.
What about the other one?
Nan Britton?
No. And Saint Germain.
Oh, yes.
Remember?
And that's an interesting story because people don't tell people who she was, George. This is fascinating.
She went to Columbus and became involved with the governor of Ohio and the Secretary of State. She lived above our restaurant.
But apparently she didn't like to come down.
No.
So you would deliver the food.
To
Anne St. Germain.
Yeah.
And you would dance with her up there, right?
I tried to stay away from her because she was like that gypsy girl they talk about. That gypsy girl,
Oh, the one we hear about today on television.
Yeah.
Oh, that was so Anne St. Germain was similar to that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Now, why do you think she was that way?
I knew her. I served her food, but I tried to, in and out, take the stuff in and get the heck out of there because she was playful. She was always playful.
Promiscuous,
whatever you want to.
Now, how old was she in these days, George?
Probably 40s.
What was her business? Where'd she get her money?
Probably from prostitution.
Oh, she was in that racket as well.
Oh, yeah.
So Anne St. Germain, though, goes down to Columbus after Marion and has a relationship with a governor and a Secretary of State.
She had an apartment paid for by the Secretary of State.
That's fascinating.
And the Neal House.
Really?
Yeah, right there down on the corner of Broad High and anyway, Broad and High, right across from there, and guys from the State House would go over and see Anne, and she was doing the prostitution right there in the Neal House.
I got to ask you this, George. We just elected a new mayor here in Marion, took office January the 1st. You've been around 91 years. Who has been your favorite mayor?
Probably Jack Kellogg.
A lot of people like Jack and still around.
Oh, Jack is one of my favorite mayors forever and ever and ever. Jack, if you're out there, God bless you, buddy. Jack's a little younger than me, but I always liked Jack. In fact, Joanne, when Joanne ran against him.
Ran against him for mayor.
She come home one day and said, George, I'm running against Jack. She was a city treasurer. She's a county auditor now, but she was city treasurer back then. That's years ago. And she said, Jack has been in there almost 4 terms. I'm going to run against him. And I said, no, you're not. Well, guess what? She ran against
She did run against him. Yes, I remember that.
Joanne was tough back in those. She still is a tough lady. She's a beautiful, tough lady. And she's smart. That's why Republicans and Democrats both vote for her.
She's been. How long has she been county auditor?
16 years now. She's going for 20.
And it was a close race between her and Jack Kellogg.
Yeah, when she ran for mayor against Jack Kellogg, Jack was up all night.
Yeah, it was a close race.
That Joanne might win this. But anyway, I'm pretty sure I had donated to Jack's campaigns before, the first 2 or 3. And because he used to come up there. I've got pictures of Jack and I in groups over the different years that there was something going on downtown, and they would gather in front of my restaurant. And I've got pictures with Jack. So Jack has been one of the best all-time mayors.
People, it's hard to understand and explain to people. Jack was just here at Christmas time for our Christmas party. And Jack was they were having a conversation with Mary Ellen. Now there's a Democrat, probably the most famous Democrat in Marion, Mary Ellen Withrow.
Having a good conversation with a Republican.
Famous Republican, Jack Kellogg.
Yeah.
And they were fine. They had a great time here. And I have pictures with them together at Christmas time.
Right.
And, people can't understand that now because politics are so awful. And I have to ask you, George, because your wife, Joanne, is a Democrat, but holy mackerel, the Democratic Party in Marion is in serious trouble.
Oh, bad.
One member of city council is a Democrat now. The mayor's Republican, the city auditor's Republican, the sheriff is Republican, the treasurer in the city is Republican. They're all Republican. Prosecutors Republican, all the county commissioners are Republican. What happened?
One of the biggest factors was when the Democrats were strong, the unions were strong. And we had steel mills here. We had, Power Shovel, the one up north, Tecumseh. And all of those workers were unionized workers. So back in the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, a mayor came in who was Democrat. His name was Ron Malone.
Ron Malone.
And probably one of the last Democrat Republicans.
Other than Scott Schertzer, yeah.
Well, Scott. But when Malone was mayor and his brother ran the unions, Bobby, it was all Democrat.
Yeah, it was. Well,
everything was Democrat.
Jack Kellogg said when he was the Republican mayor, which is not all that long ago, 92 to 2008, that there was only a 2-year period where council was Republican.
Yeah.
But now
it's all Republican.
All Republican.
So over the years it goes that way. It goes back and forth. But the reason for the Democrats back then, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, was the union power, the union money.
Did you get a lot of people from Tecumseh and the Shovel who would come to the restaurants?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, especially the Keg and Vine, the bar.
Who was the most powerful business person in Marion in those days? Who really had the pull in Marion?
That steel guy. What's his name? The guy that had he had the biggest steel mill. One of the largest in the country, I guess, because I remember when we had a fundraiser for Thomas Moyer, the Chief Justice for the state of Ohio. John Ashworth had a fundraiser for him, and it was a $1,000 a person fundraiser.
Wow.
Back then.
That's a lot of money.
Well, Tom is gone now, the Chief Justice for the state of Ohio. You know Tom Moyer?
Oh, no, I remember the name. Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, well, he came, and I got to be friendly with Tom because the food, he liked my food at the buffet. So he came to my restaurant one time and said, "George, you're feeding the judges." I said, "Yeah, I've been feeding them for a long time. I fed the judges for 40 years in my restaurant." But Tom, before he died, he came to my restaurant and said, "Why have we got a law library? That's $1 million addition to this county building, and we don't use it. I want you to serve the judges in the law library. So
And-
for the last 10 years, I've been serving judges in the law library.
Now, is it still a kick for you, George, at 91 to cook?
No,
Not anymore.
no, I enjoy cooking. That's what keeps me alive, cooking.
You like to. What is it? I mean, your life has been revolving around cooking, and not only in your own restaurants and your own clubs, but you were the maitre d' at Steve Dakota Grill for many years. You've went on to cater long into retirement. What is it about food and you that goes together?
It peps me up. It keeps me. I breathe better. With all the odors from cooking, all the different seasonings. I guess it's just the idea of the food, the smell, the seasonings. It keeps me going.
It helps.
Oh, it helps a lot.
You got to have a goal. Could you ever see a day, George, here at 91 and a half where you would ever retire completely?
No.
No. Want to keep going.
Yep.
And I think that's important. What's the secret to being 91?
Just stay healthy. Watch what you consume, because that's the most important thing of your whole life is what you consume, what you put in your body. A glass of wine with a meal is okay, but a lot of liquor, a lot of beer, alcohol hurts. And if you do have a glass of wine or a little bit of liquor, have some food with it.
Sop it up.
Sop it up.
Sop it up.
And because alcohol can kill.
It certainly can. And other unfortunate habits that people have gotten into, nicotine, smoking.
Oh,
You
yeah.
got to stay away from that sort of thing as well. And you got to eat in moderation.
Charcoal is another thing. People don't realize that. That's black.
Oh, absolutely. Well, George, many years from now, because you're going to go on, you had relatives, 105, wasn't it?
My grandfather lived to be 107.
How would you like to be remembered?
Just rolling along singing a song in search of El Dorado.
There you go. That's a good way to. I like it. I like it. I like it, George. And I'm so glad that you're still here with us in 2024. We've been doing these shows a long time together.
I love you.
I love you, George. You're one of my favorite people. And of course, we thank the Groundhog for being here with us. George Kasotis, one of the most legendary people in the history of Marion, still going strong. For Warren Groundhog Harding and my friend George Kasotis, this is Scott Spears heading for the dugout.